I agree. If you had to I don't know, putting a percentage on it seems weird, but like, what do you think happens? What do you think is most likely to happen in the next, day and a half or so before the deadline?
Yeah, it sounds like if Giannis is going to get traded, it's going to be to Minnesota. I think that there's just not enough top line talent that's enticing from a Golden State point of view, and it sounds like the Wolves have been the most aggressive in terms of trying to expand this into a 4 or 5 team deal to just totally satisfy what Milwaukee is looking for. And I think Jaden McDaniels is certainly the most enticing player that any of these teams are dangling in trade talks. And so because of that, I just think the whole Giannis circus, for it to carry on for, 3 more months, 2 more months for the rest of the season, I think would just be pretty brutal. And I think it would get nasty too if Giannis was, healthy. He's supposedly, looking to come back and play by the end of this month or early March. And I think them trying to force Giannis to sit out would just not go over well. And I think it would just be best if both sides rip the Band-Aid off. And so I think Giannis is going to get traded. And I think that, Giannis is going to end up with the Timberwolves. And I think that Ja Morant's going to end up in Miami. I think that makes sense for them as like a buy low. I just don't think Miami pushing in a lot of their chips for someone like Giannis and then still being able to compete for a title just makes a whole lot of sense for them. I don't like the Giannis and Bam fit either. But I do think something like Ja and Powell and Giannis and Bam would be, or excuse me, Ja and Powell and Bam. You'd probably be able to keep Khalil Ware, Jovic. Like I think that's and Hawkes potentially too. Like I think that's more enticing to me if I was them, because again, I think if you're in a situation like Miami, it's a good opportunity to buy low on a distressed asset. So that's kind of how I see it. It feels like that you can't really put the genie back in the bottle if you're the Timberwolves. Like I think it would be really tough for them to get this close to Giannis and not get that. But then again, like you have to give guys like Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Julius Randle credit for the way that they've been professionals, knowing full well that their names have been out there and they've continued to play really well. So I think the Timberwolves are in a, fortunate spot in that no matter which direction they go, it's pretty easy for me to understand the reasoning why. And, like you mentioned, with Tim Connelly being a guy that's been really solid in knowing when to make moves, I think, every time he's thought about really shaking things up, he's been completely right.
Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one final kickoff, the last chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, which is the Seattle Seahawks, or the underdog, New England Patriots, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The NBA trade deadline is this Thursday, so tomorrow. And we want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Wolves fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. I've been in the Discord frequently over the past few weeks. Lots of trade deadline talk. We talked a lot about Giannis, some different possibilities that could happen around the trade deadline. We talked about that throughout the day yesterday on the Discord channel. You'll also get ad-free versions of this show. If you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use the code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more.
Right. The Rudy trade was unquestionably a win for the Timberwolves. The D'Angelo Russell, Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker deal was a home run for the Wolves. I was in the minority when I said that when in the Cat for Randle and DDV trade was going to work out really well for the Wolves. It did. And then they got the cherry on top with that Brooklyn or the Detroit pick conveying and ended up becoming Johan Berenjay. So I just completely trust his read on the situation. And I mean, this is a guy that made and kind of constructed a homegrown title team, if you will, with Denver and kind of built the studs of that team. And so if he doesn't think that this Timberwolves team as presently constructed has enough to win a title, maybe not this year, but in the years moving forward, like I trust his evaluation on that. And there's a lot of super smart people in that front office. And I'm sure that they've run the expected value numbers of every different situation. So, but at this point, it seems like 60-40, it's going to happen that Giannis gets traded. And if he gets traded, it feels like it's 80-20 Timberwolves versus somewhere else, whether that's Miami or Golden State at this point. But I'll say this, I would be a little bit surprised if Giannis does not end up being a Timberwolf by the end of the week.
Man, things have changed in the last, as we record this, I don't know, 12 hours, I guess, but really 20. Like somebody asked me yesterday and I said, probably 10%. I think I said 5 to 10% that Giannis is traded, but it felt like if he was, it would be Minnesota. And now it's, I agree with you. I mean, I think I think, and you basically said this a second ago, but like with how good Tim Connelly is at what he does, and also how aggressive he is, and I know that since the Cat trade, he's I don't think he's made a single trade since then. It would be shocking if he got this close and didn't do it simply because of the combination of those things, right? When he did what he had to do to trade for Rudy Gobert, and even now you would say that the actual value of what he gave up for Gobert in a vacuum is probably technically, letter of the law, technically an overpay. But for the situation the Wolves were in and what the Wolves had gotten back for it, it made a ton of sense. And nobody now is saying that's one of the worst trades ever. Even if in a vacuum, you wouldn't say Rudy Gobert is worth 5 first-round picks or whatever. It worked out great for the Timberwolves. It raised their floor a considerable amount. They've been to 2 conference finals, and now very likely he would be part of this team, with Giannis and a obviously formidable defense at that point. It's already a very good defense. So all that to say, I agree that if it's really as close enough that they're making some of these, moves to kind of grease the wheels on getting a deal finalized, then it really at this point would be a little bit surprising if something didn't happen. And, it's somewhere in that 50-50 range, certainly as we record this late on Tuesday. All right. That's all I got. Unless you have any final words, I'm going to go ahead and get this posted because who knows how quickly this is going to change, how quickly things are, right before we recorded, we had the James Harden trade. Things are just changing constantly here 2 days out from the deadline. Yeah, that's all I got. Any final thoughts? Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Plus, everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or computer. You can even keep your existing number, and Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Quo, QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple, and that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. You may want to get to Target Center post-trade deadline. The Wolves don't play at Target Center until this weekend. The Clippers on Sunday. I guess new-look Clippers after the James Harden trade. To get your tickets, just pull up the Game Time app, pick that game or any other upcoming NBA game, and get your tickets pulled up and locked in within minutes. You'll get to see the all-in price up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. Also, Perhaps the best thing about it is you can see the view from your seat before you buy, and that helps make your decision easy. There are great last-minute options, too, if you decide at the last minute, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. All right.
Tomorrow night, after they play Toronto on Wednesday night. But I will say that Tim Connelly is just like an incredibly smart dude, has great relationships with people all across the league. I can say from all the interactions I've had with him, I mean, the guy is as nice of a dude as there is. But he's also just super smart. Like the Rob Dillingham thing that didn't work out. I think if you separate the process from the result, it's kind of the same thing I talk about with Darnold and McCarthy. Like the process that the Vikings went through was good. The result, not so good. But like the same thing with Dillingham, like people around the league were like, oh, you could do something like that to trade a future pick to get a guy that technically costs no money because it's draft rights and all that stuff. So he's super smart. And if this does end up happening, it's going to be way more complex and way more just impressive in terms of everything, that all the moving parts that it's going to take to pull it off, than I think any of us realize now in the moment. And it's part of why I've hesitated to just play around in the trade machine for minutes and hours on end. But it's going to be fun either way. And I'm very excited to see how it unfolds.
Likewise, if it happens, we'll have to have you on to break down both that piece of it, like how did they pull this off, and then also obviously the basketball fit, which we didn't even talk about. I mean, there's not much to say there, honestly. I mean, there is a lot to say there, but it's going to work if you have Giannis and Ant on the same team. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that two top 7, top 6 potentially players together are going to win a lot of games. So a lot to talk about if that does happen. Otherwise, we'll catch you.
And we're not going to know who's going to be on the roster, even.
Right.
So it's hard to know, like, how does this all fit? Because we won't know all the pieces, because there's probably going to be so many different, people.
Who else comes with Giannis? Because inevitably there's other pieces in order to make the trade legal from a number of guys' perspective, and buyout guys. Like there's so much that could change in the next 48-ish hours. That we'll definitely unpack that. We'll see you on the postcast Wednesday night following Wolves Raptors with Luke. And again, that's live after every Timberwolves game. And then the audio is right here on the Locked On Wolves audio feed. So be sure to subscribe and tune in for that after Wolves Raptors. Appreciate you having you on, or appreciate you coming on, Jack. And we'll talk to you after the deadline at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. And hopefully there's something exciting to talk about.
Yes, sir.